right, have and have not fans, let's just get into it. You know the drill. Subscribe if you're new to the channel. Hit that bell notification icon. We don't have time for that. Well, I mean, obviously you do because I really want you to. But let's talk about moles. Now, this episode last night, first off, it was good to be at home watching the episode with my mom. That way we can get, come up with ideas and theories during the commercial break. Let's look. The ending, you saw my live reaction right after the episode, so you knew how shook I was by it. Let's talk about that at the end. Let's just talk about the episode itself, okay? Now, first off, in terms of a ranking, I'm going to be honest here. Despite the ending being as ground shattering, no pun intended, as it was, window shattering, I cannot give this episode a 10 out of 10. I know it sounds petty on my part. I know I've had people who've agreed with a lot of my scores for the past several episodes were saying, bro, I gave it a 10 out of 10. I gave it a 13 out of 10. It was amazing. I can't say that the episode was perfect though. I'm going to be honest here. I could be wrong. I believe there are people out there who keep track of my scores because I think I actually put the scores in my description of the videos, but I don't think I've ever given an episode a 10 out of 10. And a 10 out of 10 would be an episode that kept me engaged the entire time. Even though I'm frustrated with the amount of commercials, it would make me be like, you know what? It would keep me in suspense the entire time. The character development, setup, things like that. That's what makes an episode a 10 out of 10. I was actually a bit let down in several scenes. So let me talk about the things that I didn't like about the episode before getting to the stuff I did like. And then, of course, talking about the cliffhanger ending. Now, even though I didn't mind the David and Erica scene, it was very sweet, the two of them in the tub and whatnot. It sucks on the one hand because we know Erica has devious intentions for David. But then on the flip side, it's just like, David is pouring his heart out to her due to the fact that he did something he regrets, even though it's odd because, David is showing remorse over slapping Veronica while Veronica straight up laughed in his face over trying to burn him up in the house. So, yeah, there's that. And the fact that Erica was like, I love you, baby. And then when I first watched, when I watched the episode with my mom asked me, what did David said? And I'm just like, I think he said, I love you too, baby. But going back and rewatching that scene several times when I got back to my apartment, because I actually got a bunch of notifications saying, Jeremy, what did he say? It sounded like, I love you too, Mary. I love you too, Megan. It didn't sound like Erica. I listened to it several times, and honestly, I do not know what he said. I know he said, I love you too, blank. I did not hear what name he said, but it did not sound like baby, and it did not sound like Erica. I have no idea what was going on there. And another thing about that scene is the fact that I felt like it was a bit too drawn out. Like, I think the scene itself did not have to be as long as it was shown in the episode. Not to mention I had to turn the TV up a few notches just to hear what was going on because it seemed like the background music was overpowering David's dialogue. Like, we know that Peter Parros, the actor that portrays David, his real voice is higher than David's voice. It's more chipper, upbeat. Like, if you ever look at any of his interviews on YouTube, his voice sounds different. I do love the David voice though, but in this particular scene, I think like either David needed to speak up or the background music needed to die down because it was difficult to hear what he was saying. Another thing I didn't like was the Justin and Wyatt scene. Now, this was something I was actually looking forward to just to see whether or not one or both of them were going to die in that scenario. But my problem came with the nurse. Now, this is hard for me to say because I'm a sucker for redheads. But basically, it seems like, we got a little glimpse of the fact that Wyatt is difficult to work with. Justin pretty much made it clear that the nurses and whatnot don't like him. And my problem with this, okay, so the nurse says, I'm going to get the doctor and lets Justin in. And to be honest, me and my mom were like, wait, does she think Justin is the doctor? What's going on here? Next thing you know, Justin's trying to bait Wyatt into hanging himself, taking the heroin. My mom was like, oh snap, that's probably going to kill him. And it's funny because Wyatt's like, I told you I'm not gay. And I'm like, thank God. But then just like I suspected, Justin didn't believe it because I'm not gay either. And I'm just like, oh snap, here we go. It's like, look, you're in the street. I love how Wyatt was just like, how am I going to hang myself or take that heroin? I'm in a damn straitjacket. And I'm like, thank God somebody said that. It was just as ridiculous as when Veronica wanted Jeffrey to sign those papers to send Benny to jail for the death of Quincy Jr. and I mean Maxwell. And I'm just like, how is Jeffrey going to sign him and he's in damn handcuffs? So then we get to like, oh, well, I'm good at getting that stuff unlocked. So, I'll put it between your toes. I'll put it on your shoulder or whatever. And he starts to bake it. And then the nurse comes back in saying you can't be in here that long. So I'm guessing that's confirmation that the nurse did not think that Justin was the doctor. But the real part about that scene was the fact that Wyatt was like, I'm not going to take it. It's like, wait, he's a friend. Wait, put him back in here. I'm just like, yeah, that scene was not as good as I thought it would be. I mean, hell, even Justin was trying to measure their yardsticks in comparison. I'm just like, yeah, this is not awkward at all. I do love his frustration at what Jeffrey sees in Wyatt. I did like that. But just like the Erica and David scene, I felt that scene was a bit too drawn out. And I think one tweet I did was the fact that, so if the nurse said she was going to get the doctor, but let Justin in the room, but then pop back in to say that Justin can't be in there that long, where the hell was the doctor? Did the doctor not show up? Did the nurse just stand outside of the door because Justin was in there and then not get the doctor, but then looked at her watch and then said, oh, you need to leave because you've been in here too long? That was weird. That made no sense. I don't know, whatever. And then another scene, let me see. I think there was one more thing I didn't really like about the episode. Well, let me check over my notes. I think that was really the only thing that sort of bugged me. Everything else seemed pretty straightforward, to be honest. Yeah. Yeah, I feel like those were the big things I really didn't like about the episode. But other than that, those reasons, like scenes that are drawn out too long or plot points that don't make sense, those, again, I say slight nitpicks, are the reason I can't give this episode a 10 out of 10. All right, now just getting into the episode itself, with the bad stuff aside, we pretty much picked up where we left off. Benny's being arrested. Candace and Hannah are yelling for him not to resist arrest. And another thing I really I don't know. Yeah, maybe this is another nitpick. The fact that Benny was still carrying the $45,000 around in his pocket. I mean, you were literally around the house. Why would you have that in your pocket? It makes no sense. I mean, yeah, maybe for the sake of plot and not extending the scene longer than it needed to be, because maybe the police would have went in there for for a search warrant or something and then found the money laying around. But given the fact that they're living in such a nice house, I doubt that will raise suspicion. But to have that money right there in your pocket made no sense to me whatsoever. Another thing that really just not irritated me, but I found interesting. Did you notice that there were a lot of bystanders in this episode during particular scenes? Like, Benny's being arrested. There are two, little like a couple was, walking down the sidewalk and they were, just froze in place and, shocked what was going on. And then after Benny was taken away, Candace and Hannah are talking and they just walk right by. And flipping later on to the episode when Jim is encountering and harassing Oscar in the hall, it looks like there were two people sitting in the back of the hallway. And, Oscar looked over to see if they noticed and just walked off to the elevator. And then later on, when Oscar is taking Candace back to his room after, he beat the shit out of her, he tried to play it off like she was drunk when a couple walked by. That was an interesting touch. I wouldn't call that a nitpick, but I think it was an interesting observation. And the fact that Tyler Perry allowed that kind of stuff to happen, because typically speaking, this stuff is kind of done behind closed doors where there's nobody around to react. So to actually have, two people in shock of somebody being arrested and a couple just minding their own business in shock because it looks like, Oscar is taking advantage of some drunken girl. That I like those little bits. We really don't get that a lot in this show. It's kind of like if you go all the way back to season 2 when Amanda was stalking Professor Cannon and like stabbed him in the back in the middle of a park and nobody was around to see it. But yeah, I really like what they did with that. So that's actually a plus in my book. Candace and Hannah have their back and forth and She gets on the phone, calls Arcade, calls for Hired Muscle, and then she mentions a convention in town. So maybe that has to do with Charles and his political campaign. I believe that's what she was referring to. But even Arcade was like, "Are you sure? Are you sure?" It's like, "Don't question me," because he's like, I mean, he's pretty much like us. Is like, I just want to make sure you're sure about putting a hit on your mom. So yeah, so that's that. And we actually got a lot of RK in this episode. Not a bad thing though. Jeffrey shows up at the bar. He's being hit on by Gia. "Hi, I'm Gia." "Oh, I'm not interested." "Oh no, oh, wait, what did she say?" "Hi, I'm Gia." "Hi, I'm gay." "Oh, nice to meet you, gay." Gia, never change, but please leave the show. But yeah, then the fact that, RK tries to put the moves because he actually likes his watch. It looks like he's throwing a pull on Jeffrey, what he did with that old dude for $10,000. Just assuming by his shoes and watch that he has a lot of money. Now, I said this in my trailer breakdown for Till Death Do Us Part. I don't think that, Jeffrey is rich. I think he has money, but he's not like, a millionaire. He's an heir to the Harrington fortune, but he's not a rich person himself. Can you imagine if Veronica, I was like, thinking about what would happen if Veronica found out RK was putting the moves on her son, but what if she actually robs? Wow, if he robbed Jeffrey, then that's a twofer. Like, he robbed Veronica, now wants to rob him too, and that greed is going to catch up with him. He even has a nice conversation with Gia about, what his goals are. I just want to get enough money from this hustle to go to LA and make it big, baby. So yeah, just a little scene, but at least we got more about his development in character and the fact that he has a crush on Candace. Now, it is confirmed that he does indeed want to bang Candace, and he even wants to rob Veronica. But as Candace said, look, she's crazier than I am. And it's like, I like that. I'm not going to lie, this show has taught me I do have a thing for crazy women, but not to the extent of being pushed out of a window or, being inside of a burning house she set on fire. But that's aside from the point. Later on in the episode, we have RK still flirting with Jeffrey, and luckily he's like, "Hey, I'm about to go on break, so I'll be up in your room," which leads to next episode where Justin shows up like I predicted. But in another scene, Candace is scouting out the area, and she's like, "Watch me on my six." I like that little bit of dialogue. It really makes us feel like a suspenseful scene. And RK was like, "You need me to walk you up to your room?" "Oh no, I'm going to take the elevator," because she's trying to avoid Oscar. Which is interesting because the one thing she does to avoid Oscar is the very thing that makes her encounter Oscar. And I'm going to stop it right there when it comes to that plot. Also in the episode, Jim calls Sarah being a son of a bitch as always. But luckily enough, it seems like Sarah is finally done with Jim. It's like, look, I've done everything you've asked and more. You have all this evidence. And she pretty much just regurgitates a bunch of exposition that Gia is actually with the feds, working for the DA, and thinks you're in league with the prostitution ring that's going on at the hotel. That's interesting that the feds would think that Jim has a prostitution ring within his wife's own hotel. That's kind of hilarious when you think about it. Then he confronts Gia and pretty much pulls a Harvey Weinstein. I mean, Jim was on fire this episode, to be honest. I really liked him until the very end where he forced himself on Gia, just like he did with Sarah a few episodes ago. Man. Because I did love his interaction with Oscar. And how I've talked about, and I'm not going to lie, it does sound like complaining, but that's because I'm not a fan of how they've done Oscar ever since he woke up from that overdose. Oscar stood his ground. I liked it, the fact that he's like, what, I don't like being threatened. It's like, how much do you know about me, Oscar? And it's like, I know a lot. And then it's like, how did you fall for the sleep with me trick? And then Oscar was like, well, it seems to me that the same thing worked on you. And I do like that he stood his ground. Oscar was at the top of his game until he fell to the bottom of the hotel window. But that's, God. Yeah, Jim was actually great in this episode, even confronting Gia, like, I ain't got time for these games. And yeah, then he forced himself on him, because I love Jim up until that point. That's not one of my nitpicks and not a reason this episode doesn't get a 10 out of 10, but it is good that they are at least consistent with his character, that he's a sex hound, but forcing himself on Gia, I ain't really like that part. Other than that, another great scene was just I love how we're getting less and less Veronica, but whenever she's on the screen, it's one of the best parts of the episode. Like, I love this stone cold version of her. The fact she's telling the hitman is like, wipe your feet. And allegedly those two have worked together in the past. So it could be that this man is somebody that Veronica is hired in the past. It could be somebody that she got out of jail, just like when it came to Derek. And just by their conversation, it seems like they know each other. This guy does have a thing for this, cold, calculating side of Veronica, which is good because to me, he actually represents the fan base that actually loves this cold, calculating ice queen, which I am a fan of myself. But, what am I going to do with your broke ass? And it just throws the wad of cash at him, gives him a picture saying that's the target. And then the fact that David hit her was enough to make both of them target, not just Erica. So Veronica wants both of them dead. Wow. And then the fact he hit me. He really, really hit me. He hit me. And then he tried to snap her out of it. So yeah, Veronica's still in shock, which is wow. So, okay. Another thing to think about is the fact that we actually have a well executed plan. The fact that she wants explosions. I mean, because Veronica is all about being fabulous. Like, killing somebody off isn't that simple. It has to be done with some sort of significance or meaning when you really think about it. And I might be looking too deep into this, but this is a theory channel. Remember when Maggie Day was shot and killed in her own front door? It to me was kind of like, Veronica symbolizing like, look, you think you're just going to walk into my life and take my husband away? You're sorely mistaken. So it's ironic that Maggie Day was killed right outside of Veronica's house before she can get in, which is kind of like Veronica's way of saying, like, you think you can just walk into my life and take what you want, but that's not how I roll. And you get killed right on the front step before you even step foot in my house, which is an interesting way of thinking about it. That's just the way I look at it. So kind of like, Veronica wanted the explosions. It's kind of like, what? You hit me in the face, so I'm going to have everything that you love, David, blow up in front of you. So again, I think that is a pretty interesting sign of symbolism if that's what they were going for. Like I said, I might be looking too deep into this, but that's what I do on this channel. But overall, as a whole, we have Rocky confronting RK, just talking about the fact that, Candace beat him up and now he's going to be coming after her, which is wow. Now Candace has another person to worry about. And RK, look, even though he does seem like a very fun character, which I don't dislike RK at all, I just think the fact that he's burning the count, he's letting his crush on Candace make him blind to the dangers of what he's like trying to get involved with Veronica, trying to get involved with Candace, betraying Rocky. It's just amazing how he's probably going to be building up more enemies than anyone else in such a short amount of time. And he's a new character. That's crazy to think about. Then we also have the fact that, let's see here. Yeah, I do love the nod to continuity when RK asked if Jeffrey was somebody he met before, because those two actually briefly met in jail when RK was arrested for DUI and allegedly used as a toy by Justin in order to make Jeffrey jealous. So yeah, Jeffrey kind of just brushed it off, but yeah, what can you do? So aside from that, that's about it. Catherine gets on the phone. Well, actually, I'm sorry. Catherine sees Hannah at the jail, goes to the car and cries because she knows the truth, which we know she reveals in the next episode. RK even tries to call Veronica, but Veronica, again, is not playing any games, rushes him off the phone, and that's that. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I believe that covers everything there is to know about the episode Moles, up until the point where we talk about the one thing I know everyone and their mother wants me to talk about. Candace getting her ass beat in that elevator. My gosh, Oscar, it was like a fight on sight. A couple of punches to the stomach, throwing her against the right side of the elevator, then hitting her head against the other side. We don't see that part, and then she's on the ground. Oscar hits the button to go up a few floors. Then from there drags her to his room and proceeds to slap her and hit her around, even though that slap was badly choreographed. Because some people were asking me in the live stream, what slap was more fierce, Oscar slapping Candace or David slapping Veronica? That was easy because I feel like the David slap was more well choreographed. The fact that Veronica was sent flying, whereas you can clearly see that Candace did not get slapped. I mean, the camera angles pretty much confirms that, but it was enough for her to be begging Oscar to stop hitting her. And the fact that he actually took her purse and looked, I was laughing my ass off. It's like, Oscar, do you really think that little purse was enough to hold almost $9 million. I was laughing my ass off. But he was in a desperate position because, he's on a ticking clock. And then Jim even told him, it's like, Oscar was like, look, you already said you were going to kill me. What else can you do? What else can you do to me? And then Jim was like, there are some things that are worse than death, which is a line I haven't heard since Jafar said that in Aladdin, The Return of Jafar. Interesting. And, then from there, he turns his back in frustration like an idiot. And then Candace does what she does and tosses him pushes him out of the window. Now, some people are saying Oscar is alive. Maybe, even after the episode ended, my mom was like, you know how Tyler Perry does? What if he fell on something or, like something broke his fall, instead of his body? Or other people like, wait, when Tyler Perry, Oscar's probably dangling out of the window. But no, sadly, Philip Boyd actually uploaded a video, farewell to everyone on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, just, thanking all the fans and Tyler Perry for having him a part of the show. Oscar is dead. Now, I am not going to do a video talking about, is Oscar still alive? Because I feel like not only would that be clickbait, just to make it seem like I was getting views, but it would just show ignorance on my part because I've seen the video. A bunch of people tagged me in the video that Philip Boyd put up. So for me to make that video, I feel like I would get a lot of backlash for it because people be like, you clearly know Philip Boyd said Oscar is dead. You're just doing this video for views. I don't want to do that because, first of all, I don't have time. I got more videos to do on this episode. But overall, I think it was a solid episode. The ending had me going. I feel like that cliffhanger ending, even though I predicted it because I did do the video about will Candace kill Oscar on the channel a couple of days ago. Even though I knew this was coming, I feel like this shook me more than the scene where David hit Veronica because I didn't see it coming. The episode synopsis said that Veronica would push David to a point he didn't know he even had, but to actually see Oscar being shoved out of that window, my God, that was something else. So with that being said, what did you think of the episode? I'm going to be honest here. I'm going to give the episode a 9.2 out of 10. I'm sorry, there were some nitpicks. I honestly wanted to give it like an 8.5, but the good outweighed the bad just because of the sheer magnitude that the cliffhanger inflicted on me. Like I said before, I think the title of the episode was Mole's Episode Reaction. That was a live stream I did last night. In that video, you clearly saw how shocked I was. So a 9.3. I feel like that's a fair score despite all the nitpicks I had. And the nitpicks really came out of scenes being extended too long and just continuity things like Benny always having the money on him and the whole nurse thing with Wyatt and then the David and Erica scene being low audio. Tyler Perry has done it again. These episodes and these trailers are something else. Then the fact that he took time to actually post that picture about 3 or 4 characters dying in the next 3 episodes says a lot. So next week is Till Death Do Us Part. And then the fact that he said 3 episodes, I feel like that's confirmation that next week's episode is not the finale. Not to mention the narrator for the trailer didn't even say, get ready for the finale next week. So guys, next week is not the finale. It is not the finale. We might have one more episode after that, but that week is not the finale. So let me know what your thoughts on Moles was in the comment section below, and I'll talk to you all later.